That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years.
No, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, cha-ching. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they call them Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sunny.
For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Sunny Hostin just took a verbal smackdown so brutal it might need a trigger warning. We're talking Greg Gutfeld dishing out savage sarcasm like it's happy hour, Tyrus rolling up with hard receipts like it's tax season, and Sunny, she didn't just get rattled, and she practically collapsed under the weight of her own commentary. This wasn't a debate. This was a daytime demolition. It all started with Sunny doing what she does best, smugly dissecting the latest hot button issue with that "I'm morally superior" stare. But this time, Gutfeld wasn't having it. He came in swinging with jokes sharper than a courtroom cross-examination. Then came Tyrus, cool as ever, pulling out actual facts like a magician pulling rabbits from a hat. And Sunny, her arguments started to fall apart faster than a Hollywood marriage in week 2. It wasn't just awkward, it was a full-blown live TV implosion. You could practically hear the producers in the control room scream, "Cut to commercial." But oh no, the cameras kept rolling, and the view table, let's just say, it barely survived the heat. This feud isn't over, it's just beginning. And with egos bruised, reputations cracked, and receipts still flying, we're buckling up for round 2.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from...
Man that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day, that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emily.
Sunny Hostin sat at the view table like she was about to deliver a TED Talk on how to be morally superior in designer heels. Draped in Chanel and armed with the kind of smug confidence that could power a Tesla. But what she didn't expect: a surprise crash course in reality. Enter Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus, not even in the same room, but still managing to dismantle her entire argument like it was a stack of Jenga blocks on a fault line. Gutfeld hit her with dry wit that cut sharper than Sunny's cheekbones, while Tyrus rolled in with facts so undeniable, they practically came with their own mic drop. One moment, Sunny was preaching like the dean of woke you. The next, her monologue became the internet's newest punchline. When delusion meets data, it wasn't just a clash of opinions, it was a reality check so loud it echoed. From The View to Fox Studios and back again. And let's be honest, the internet noticed. Memes exploded, TikToks flew, and Sunny, well, she might need a PR strategy stronger than her morning coffee. Stay tuned, because if this feud keeps snowballing, The View might need a new table, and Sunny might need a new script.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, you know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that.
She sat there, dishing out doom like the brunch menu came with a side of apocalypse, but this time, the only thing getting served was her own argument, on a platter of sarcasm. Greg Gutfeld didn't even need to step foot on the set. One viral clip, a pinch of logic, and boom! Sonny's self-righteous monologue went up like cheap hairspray near a lighter. And Tyrus, he didn't shout, he didn't strut, he calmly pulled out the kind of facts that made Sonny's moral grandstanding look flimsier than a paper straw in a milkshake. She's got a habit of turning every hot topic into a Shakespearean tragedy. Society is crumbling because someone ordered a steak. The world's ending because someone said good morning without a trigger warning. But this time, the dramatics backfired. Instead of applause, Sonny found herself getting fact-checked mid-sentence. Not by her co-hosts, but by a tag team of Gutfeld and Tyrus from an entirely different network. Talk about getting dunked on via satellite. Her credibility didn't just take a hit, it took a nosedive. And while The View is used to controversy, this time Sonny might be rethinking her next monologue. Because the internet isn't just watching, it's rewinding, remixing, and roasting.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sonny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, asking that question, it might have been a closer election. But when oh no, nothing really comes to mind, I was like, cha-ching. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they call them Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now double.
You remember when Sonny Hostin casually implied that voters of color who didn't agree with her must be misinformed? Yeah? Like she's the political GPS for every non-white American. Recalculating, because your opinion doesn't align with mine. According to Sonny, if you're not sipping the same kombucha-flavored ideology she serves daily on The View, you must be lost, confused, or tragically banned from her elitist book club. But here's the twist. That moral high horse she's been riding, it just tripped over receipts. Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't even need to set foot in her studio. They launched inconvenient truths from the sidelines like precision airstrikes. No yelling, no drama, just cold, cutting facts. And Sonny, she swung back with the strength of a wet pool noodle, the political equivalent of bringing a foam bat to a chainsaw duel. The more she talked, the deeper the crater. And the internet? Oh, it ate it up. This wasn't a debate, it was a demolition. And Sonny was the last to realize she'd become the main character in a live stream takedown.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sonny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So instead, let's check out this clip from Monday's episode of The View when the ladies put their science caps on and discuss the solar eclipse.
What made it truly beautiful was how effortlessly The View unraveled. Not with a bang, but with the soft hiss of a balloon losing air. Could practically hear the studio lights flicker as the weight of reality dropped like a piano in a silent movie. And yet, the co-hosts clung to the script like ensemble dancers in a Broadway musical called Delusion the Tap Dance. Whoopi, she offered one of those solemn Oscar-worthy nods. Ana Navarro sighed so hard you'd think democracy just got evicted. And Joy Behar, she tilted her head like she was listening. But let's be real, she was mentally halfway through her lunch order. That's the magic of The View. It's not a discussion panel. It's a synchronized swim of scripted agreement. Any whiff of dissent is treated like a contagion and inconvenient facts. They get quarantined faster than a bad Yelp review. Pay close attention next time Sonny says something straight up bonkers. The co-hosts stare like trained golden retrievers waiting for approval. The nodding is so robotic, you'd think the stage manager installed a metronome behind the camera. And when logic kicks the door in, cue the emergency protocol, emotional appeals, deployed, victim card, thrown like a Hail Mary, topic pivot to a vague, cultural crisis, activated. Don't like the criticism? Easy fix. Just yell misinformation, toss in buzzwords like dangerous rhetoric, and wrap the mess in a cozy quilt of passive-aggressive elitism. Problem solved. Except this time, the truth didn't play along.
Oh no, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, cha-ching. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be, this should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last, they call them Hitler, they call these things, America rejected them. And instead of coming back and saying, we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sonny.
Because Gutfeld and Tyrus, bless their dry, surgical wit, didn't show up to the View's emotional kabuki theater with jazz hands. Nope, they rolled in like a comedy tag team from the Five, armed with common sense, cultural awareness, and a pocket full of mic drops. No shrieking, no finger wagging, just calm, calculated demolition. Reality bombs dropped so effortlessly you'd think they were handing out Tic Tacs. And Sunny, she flailed, like someone trying to swat away a swarm of facts. No teleprompter, no applause, just that dreaded echoing silence. The one that says, you just got fact-checked by the real world. There's nothing more satisfying than watching someone who monologues like they're at a TED Talk realize the audience isn't clapping, they're laughing. And sure, she'll be back at the table tomorrow. New outfit, new outrage, same recycled glare, and another speech crafted for the echo chamber. But let's be honest, you don't bounce back from a burn that loud, you simmer. And this was the moment the View hit self-destruct and didn't even realize someone pressed the button. What began as Sunny's daily blame the world sermon morphed into comedic gold the second Gutfeld and Tyrus strolled into the scene, metaphorically, of course, and torched the entire segment with a single sarcastic matchstick of logic. Game, set, collapse.
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Yeah. Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist.
Intro 7 Sunny Hostin, perched on her throne, launches into yet another one-size-fits-all rant about crime and policing in America, a topic she treats with all the subtlety of a Yelp review written by a frustrated barista. Imagine, if you will, an emotional TED Talk where theatrics and ignorance collide headfirst. There she goes, turning the issue into a dramatic performance, implying that policing itself is the root of all evil, crime, just misunderstood art. And what's the real issue? People just aren't listening enough to Sunny's take. Classic, right? No data. Just an overwhelming, self-righteous moral fervor and the smug conviction that a hashtag somehow qualifies as policy. Cue the entrance of the comedy duo, Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus. Uninvited, uninterested, and shocker, way more prepared. Gutfeld, without missing a beat, responds with such deadpan precision it could have been etched into stone. His opener? A simple but powerful takedown, laced with numbers and wrapped in enough sarcasm to make the earth itself cringe. Funny how the loudest voices screaming "defund the police" always live the farthest away from where police are actually needed. Almost like they enjoy private security. But think poor neighborhoods should test social workers as backup. Sunny? She blinks. Looks like someone just asked her to explain her internet password on live TV. The room? It didn't just lose air. It lost the script, the plot, and the whole damn performance. The moment? Priceless.
It's not even that. And The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. Mm-hmm. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sunny, and the, was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back. She was a Republican.
Just when you thought Sunny's monologue couldn't get any more cringeworthy, Tyrus calmly slides into the conversation, dropping cold, hard statistics like a surgeon performing a precision cut. He broke down violent crime rates in cities that embraced defunding policies, followed by a killer jab at the hypocrisy of celebrities who preach community safety measures while secretly hiring off-duty cops for their private security. His style: smooth, calm, almost bored, like he's explained this 1,000 times to people who nodded and smiled before heading straight back to TikTok to forget everything he just said. But here comes Greg Gutfeld, the undisputed king of the kill shot. One simple line, and it wasn't just a comeback. It detonated. The energy shifted from a supposedly passionate debate to full-on damage control mode. If you weren't sitting at the edge of your seat before, you sure were now. Sunny? She tried to pivot, pulling off some Olympic-level mental gymnastics, tossing out vague talking points in the hopes that no one would notice her argument had just spontaneously combusted on live TV. But spoiler alert, the internet noticed, the ratings noticed, and that's when Tyrus, the calm storm himself, decided it was time to drop the reality anvil right on top of Sunny's fragile little bubble. Unlike the glitzy, over-the-top antics of the View panelists, Tyrus doesn't need to shout or wave his arms like he's auditioning for the next superhero flick. His power is in the facts, and that's something Sunny and the others just couldn't handle.
The problem is that you have to go after the racist people, and if the CEO goes, you know what, I'm not going to allow a woman on my show or man that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah,
Tyrus was an absolute force of nature, delivering his points with street-level precision, a precision that only comes from seeing the world. With raw eyes, untouched by the polished lens of media privilege. This wasn't some neatly crafted rhetoric that had been fine-tuned in a studio with expensive lighting. No, this was the raw truth, wrapped in non-nonsense logic. He hit Sunny where it hurt the most. He didn't just challenge her ideology. He went for her privilege, the same privilege she and the media elite so carefully try to hide behind. Sunny, the supposed voice of the oppressed, suddenly found herself on the defensive, with Tyrus throwing out an inconvenient truth. She has as much in common with the average working class person as she does with a reality TV star. You don't speak for people in the trenches when your biggest concern is brunch with Anna Navarro. He said it almost casually, as though it were just another fact of life. It wasn't just a burn, it was the kind of smackdown. That made you rethink every argument you've ever had. And the kicker? Tyrus was sitting there in a casual tee while Sunny tried her hardest to wear moral superiority like it was an oversized cape. She was out of her league. Sunny's response? Well, let's just say it was pure unadulterated crickets. You could almost hear the panic in her head, scrambling to come up with something, anything that could save her face in front of the cameras. Meanwhile, from the sidelines, Joy Behar, clearly rattled, whispered an unspoken command. Abort mission. Like it was an off-screen directive that no one dared to question.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
And what did Sunny do when the facts started hitting her too hard? Well, you can probably guess by now. Look, she pulled the classic Sunny Hostin pivot. She swiftly switched from being an intellectual juggernaut to the victim of hostility, the kind who starts a fight and then acts like they're caught in a crossfire. The moment Tyrus and Greg delivered their lethal doses of reality, Sunny didn't handle it like a seasoned panelist. Oh no, she quickly turned into the person who sows the seeds of conflict, then gets dramatically offended when the seeds sprout back in their face. She accused Greg and Tyrus of being inflammatory, as if they were the ones who set the flames of outrage in motion. But let's be real here. Sunny was already sitting in the fire, throwing logs on the flames, all while pretending to be a neutral observer. It's a strategy she's employed time and time again. Now start the drama, but don't you dare turn the heat back on me. The moment you hear Sunny trying to reclaim the high ground, you realize she loves to throw punches, as long as no one throws one back. She's got the whole moral high ground routine down, but only until someone dares to tell her. She's standing on quicksand. You can almost hear the gears turning in her head. Wait, I thought I was the one dishing out the lectures here. How is this happening to me? The irony of it all, the moment things get too real, the debate suddenly pivots to victimhood. And just like that, the woman who spent years slamming others for their lack of empathy is now the one crying about being attacked.
So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the View's gravitational pull.
And then, of course, there was the audience. The poor, confused souls trapped in the middle of this live TV train wreck. You could almost see their collective panic as they tried to figure out whether to clap, laugh, or just cower under their studio seats in sheer disbelief. What do you do when you're watching an emotional meltdown unfold on live TV? Do you applaud the courage? Or do you recoil in horror at the absolute disaster? The tension in the room must have been palpable. And then, as expected, the internet did what the internet does best. Roast the rich, the powerful, and the overly self-assured. Sunny became the hottest meme to hit Twitter since That's the Tea. The world was eating it up. Sunny's meltdown wasn't just an embarrassing moment on live TV, it was a symbol of how quickly the walls of self-righteousness can come, crumbling down when faced with actual substance. After that disastrous collapse, you'd think The View would take a moment to address the elephant in the room, but nope. Instead, they went for the classic, let's pretend this didn't happen move. The very next episode was a masterclass in damage control, and what better way to cover up a complete disaster than with a segment about dogs doing yoga? Because when you're trying to erase the reality of a public meltdown, a puppy stretching on a mat is just the distraction you need. If only they'd gone for a cat video for that extra touch of irony. But the audacity was real. They even had the nerve to act like everything was fine, casually transitioning from Sunny's cringeworthy collapse to segments on the latest celebrity gossip. No mention of the debate, no accountability, just a textbook example of how to gaslight an entire audience on national TV. You almost have to admire the level of delusion. It's honestly impressive how well they pulled it off. Must be exhausting to be that delusional, and even more exhausting to pull it off while pretending to be an expert on literally everything.
Of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny, she's so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she was.
The View represents everything wrong with the modern media echo chamber. It's a platform where a group of self-righteous panelists constantly pat each other on the back for sharing opinions that are more about their feelings than about actual facts. No one dares to challenge the narrative. Instead, they validate each other's emotional rants like a circle of people who forgot what a credible argument looks like. But here's the real kicker. Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't just roast Sunny. They exposed the entire approach that The View takes when it comes to political commentary. It wasn't about just tearing down Sunny's argument. It was about shining a light on the echo chamber that's been operating unchecked for years. The real issue isn't just Sunny's cringe-worthy performance on TV. It's the fact that people like her continue to pretend they speak for the working class, all while sitting in their cushy studio chairs, out of touch with what's actually going on in the world. Sunny's collapse wasn't just personal. It was a public reminder that arrogance and emotional rants can't drown out the truth forever. The walls of delusion might hold up for a while, but facts have a funny way of crashing through, no matter how many times they're ignored. So let's recap. Sunny starts with that smug attitude, thinking she can lecture everyone. Gutfeld effortlessly demolishes her with facts that can't be argued with. Tyrus drops some hard-hitting truths that leave Sunny scrambling for cover. And then, well, Sunny retreats into a heap of word salad, trying to salvage whatever she can of her sinking argument. It's almost poetic. In the epic battle between reality and The View, reality finally got a little screen time, and honestly, it was glorious.